Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today on this cold day, we are going to decorate these bright yellow Crocs that I just got in the mail today from Poshmark. I'm going to use a combination of Sharpies and Posca paint pens to do this. This is not my original idea. This is from an artist that came up in my feeds on Facebook. Her name is Keisha Devaney. Hers were a little different with her flowers and her marks. So this is how I make flowers. And this was a very long, arduous process. It took hours to do this. If you try this, I would, recommend doing your flowers in black Sharpie pen, and then going back and coloring them, and just you're going to have to go back over your flowers and your design a couple of times until you like it. You'll see in the video as I start coloring, I start with a Sharpie pens to color, and they leave a streaky appearance because of the rubber. So I grabbed my Posca paint pens. They're new and I love them. And they're very opaque, so they do a perfect job of covering up the streak marks in a Sharpie. And then, as you'll see, I get done coloring in all the flowers, all the different colors that I typically like. I wear jeans a lot. I'm kind of a boho, hippie, dress wearing girl in the summer. So I figured I was going to pull those colors out that I like most and color my flowers. And the larger flowers were drawn with a larger broad-tipped, chisel-tipped Sharpie. And then you'll see that when I get done coloring, I go back in with a Micron permanent pen, but on this rubber, it did smear. But the good thing about that is I was able to take a wet baby wipe and wipe that off at the very end. I do some spot cleaning throughout when my hand smeared some of the flowers. And then at the very end, you'll see that I just, I think I edited it out, but I did go through and I cleaned up any fingerprints and that sort of thing. And it worked great. I've been wanting a pair of Crocs for quite some time. I have several other Crocs that I live in here in Florida. I wear Croc flip-flops all summer with everything. And I thought these would be cute for in the house because I have slippers, but they make my feet hot. And these, I'm going to have the protection for my feet and my back, so my back doesn't hurt. And then, the cushion. And then with the air holes, I figured my feet would be much less hot than wearing slippers. And I have them on right now. They're all finished and beautiful, and I love them. And I've been wearing them around the house for about an hour, and they're just perfect. Here's the Micron pen. I go in, and now that the larger flowers are drawn, I go in and I draw some smaller flowers with a finer tipped pen. These are very hippy-dippy, which is totally me. Keisha Devaney had peace on one sandal, and she had I believe it was Dream on the other. And I did not write words on mine. I kind of wanted to, but as the process went along, I just really couldn't fit it in. So I didn't go with words. Hers were faux Crocs. These are Crocs. And where I wanted to write my words, they had these little tiny raised dots that I figured would kind of make my pen work look messy. So I just skipped that step altogether. I hope you're keeping warm wherever you are. I see that everybody's having a blizzard where you live right now, and it's very cold here in Florida, colder than it's been since I've lived here. I moved here in 2014. I lived here for 3 years and then moved away. It got down into the 30s, like high 30s then, and last night it got down to 25. So everybody was out covering their plants, and the wind was whipping, and it was freezing today. But I put on my slippers and my sweater, and I had a little space heater that my husband bought me for my craft room, because my craft room juts out from the rest of the house, so it does get colder than the rest of the house. And so I turned that on today, and it was nice and toasty in there. I do some outlining with the Micron pen, I should say, around some of the lines. And I take the decor to the back of the sandal later, you'll see. And as you do this, if you decide to do this, you'll realize that when you color things in after drawing the black outline, if you color that in with a paint pen, some of your black marks are covered up, so you'll have to go back around them to brighten up that dark line, that crisp black line. There's nothing I love more than having a project. So as soon as I realized I got my box in the mail, I had my husband run up and get it, and away I went with this project. At first you start and it's a little intimidating. I worked on a different camera angle today. I moved it down closer, and so you could see better what I was doing. And then as time goes by, you just forget the camera's on at all, and you just off you go and just kind of lose yourself in the project. And it was a fun time, and I enjoyed myself. And these, I really, really love the end result. If you have a pair of light colored Crocs that you can paint on, I highly recommend you give this a try. I think that when you wear them out, you'll get all kinds of compliments because they're going to be very unique. No one else will have them. I broke my right foot twice in the same spot once, and then 2 years later, almost to the day, I broke the same foot again. And so it's very hard once you break a foot to ever wear anything uncomfortable on your feet again. So I'm definitely a Crocs fan. These originally started as nursing shoes, medical personnel shoes for like the operating room and nurses on the floor. And I'm a nurse, but I never did wear these. I think they came out much later after I stopped working on the floor. Actually, I wear them around the house, and I really can't imagine wearing these to work. I mean, I guess if you wore a sock with them, maybe, but I was just an old white nurse's shoe nurse, so I'm not sure I would like them for on the floor as a nurse. I'm going back in here and I'm drawing in the stems of the leaves, and I'm outlining the flowers in a like a double flower, and I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to use a white pen, a white marker, and color that in. And then I'll have to redo the lines again. And I keep going back and just improving each flower as I go. I'm making little hash marks in my leaves on my petals. I go back in and I find my white pen later, and I put little dots inside of the centers of some of the flowers. Most of the larger well, all of the larger flowers, the whole is the center of the flower, and then my little flowers, I go and I put tiny little white dots in the center of those. I'd actually like to get another pair of these in another light color and then try to do some other design on them someday, maybe. I'm not really good at drawing, but flowers I can do. Maybe if I planned it out first with pencil and then created something like that. This was just freehand, and maybe if I did pencil first and then went over it with pen, I could do something more elaborate. It's funny where your mind goes. I started thinking about nursing shoes while I was doing this video, and I remember listening to my grandmother walk in her nurse's shoes, and we would take her to work, and I'd hear her hose hitting, rubbing up and down on each other, and her nurse's shoes squeaking. And I remember my nurse's shoes used to squeak too on the floor, and it just always reminded me of her. I remember I used to wear these one nurse's shoes, and they were called rockers. And anybody that's ever been a nurse or a nursing assistant will remember those. I don't even know if they still make them. It's been so long. But they were, they really had like an arch on the bottom that jutted out. So when you put your heel down, you rocked up on the top of your foot with each step. It took some getting used to. I used to trip over my own feet, which I still do that. But when you got used to them, they were okay. You did a lot of bouncing in them because they were extra cushiony and spongy. I used to be so thin, all the miles that I put on at work. There was no reason to exercise being a nurse, that's for sure. With the miles that I got in, I wish I would have had some sort of like an Apple Watch back then or a pedometer. I actually think I thought about that at one time, but I didn't have one, so I couldn't really decipher how many miles I got in a shift, but it was tons. I was 117 pounds then, very, very tiny, and I ate 3 meals a day and snacks in between, and I'd get home and I was toast, exhausted. And enough time to get up and do it all again the next day. 12-hour shifts. Lots and lots of miles. This is the white pen. I tried it with a white Posca pen at first, and it didn't really work. You'll see if you do this and you have both Posca pen and Sharpie pens, which I would recommend waiting till you have both to do this, you'll see that in some instances the Sharpie works better, and in other instances the Posca pen will work better. And it's difficult to explain, but in certain areas you'll just see that it's brighter and easier. And then you'll see too that when you do this with a white paint pen, you have to keep dabbing the tip of the pen, because as your white pen drags on along the black pen, you'll get a gray mark. So you have to kind of keep stopping, wiping the tip, and restarting. And I found that the Sharpie was just a brighter white that I needed versus the Posca pen, which was a little bit more watery in some spots. Now I'm just decorating that top part with coloring it in with a hot pink Posca marker. Do the same on the other side, and then I'm kind of just looking around the shoe to see where I can decorate next. Now I'm back to the Posca pen and coloring in some of the little teeny little petals, going over the white, seeing what I can get whiter. Doing the little dots inside of the flower in the center. Came in handy for that. It makes a nice little dot without really much effort. And what I'm going to do is take these outside in the next day or so, and I'm going to spray them with a sealant just so everything stays put and doesn't smear if they get wet. And that should keep everything nice and finished and sealed onto the shoe. I did try at the very end to take a paintbrush, and once everything was dry, I did use the art dryer. I just edited those spots out, but I did use the art dryer in areas that I needed to continue to work, but it was still wet. When everything was all done and the shoe was all dry, I tried to take a brush and use some gel medium as a sealant over top in the corner, and it did start to smear my work, so I stopped immediately and just dabbed it with a wet baby wipe. And so what I'll do is take the shoes outside or in the garage, and I will stuff the inside of the shoes with towels so nothing gets inside the shoe. Excuse me. And just spray it with the sealant that I have. And then in the outer part of the flower that I drew, I do lines or dots just to make a contrast around each flower. Excuse me. I think at this point my husband was actually texting me to see if I wanted him to bring dinner home, and I was so into the project. I don't even, either I didn't hear the ding, or when you're filming it doesn't ding or something, but here in a little bit he brings home dinner and I stop, and then when he leaves after we're done eating, I start again. And I just go in and I fill in any of the little gaps between the flowers with some polka dots. So it's flowers and polka dots. There I am. I'm back. I have a sweater on now. I'm freezing. Brr. I have my heater back on. And this is my large Posca pen, which I love. One tiny little dot. You just barely touch it, and the nibs are just so cool. It makes the perfect polka dot. I have this in white and black. I'm just taking the thin Micron black pen and just going and trying to find some more area on the shoe that I can color in. So I find these little grooves that I'm just taking the pen and running the pen along the groove in the shoe. And I'm going to create an area that I can continue to paint on. See the raised areas that look like little goosebumps? That's just an area that I can't really decorate. It's very, if that wasn't there, I could actually color that in, but it would make for a very difficult design. I was kind of shocked that this Micron pen smeared, but it certainly did. If I was to do this again, I would make sure that I had a fine point Sharpie instead of using the Micron pen. See, there's an example of how it smears. I decided to color this in because it's smeared around the edges, and I figured if I went in between and colored each one of those little squares differently, I would have to go back and remake my lines with the pen, and I just didn't want to do that. So I just colored the whole thing in black, and I go back later when it's all dry and I put polka dots on it. Thinking. I did try a Posca pen on this area, and I had to wipe it off. I did edit that part out. It wiped right off. The Posca pen for making the white dots was a little too wet, a little watery, so I went back to the white Sharpie, and it worked much better. I hope you give this a try on your own Crocs, and definitely if you're having foot pain or back pain, I recommend wearing them around the house. They are a lifesaver. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for coming back to my channel. Please subscribe, like, and comment below. Let me know what you think. See you in the next video. Bye for now.